This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Welcome to this week's In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. Glad you're able to join us for this show. A little bit later on during this program, we'll find out a little bit about some child care for essential workers that are available. We'll talk to a local business owner who has made the decision to keep going in the restaurant business. And we'll also have a brief conversation with Kathy Williams, Wayne County trustee. But we're in the bunker. I don't get to come down here much. This is cool. Where all the gadgets are, we are in the emergency management area. We're speaking with Matthew Kane, who is Director of the Emergency Management and Communications. I'm close enough?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And Deputy Director of Emergency Management, John Duke. Thanks for taking some time. I know you all are incredibly busy right now.
Thank you.
Let's start with spring has sprung, and we felt it this past weekend when we ended up with a high wind warning, a high wind advisory, a thunderstorm warning, and something
flash
else.
Flood, I believe.
Yeah, flash flood that all
yeah.
kind of blew in. This time of year, normally you all are talking a lot about the weather, but the conversation has shifted. But let's start with that. What do people really need to kind of be aware of this time of year?
Sure, absolutely. 2 weeks ago was actually Indiana's Severe Weather Awareness Week. We pushed some things out on our social media, but for obvious reasons, it was a bit overshadowed, and we understand that. However, this weekend was a perfect example that we can't necessarily ignore severe weather. While it can happen year-round, it is traditionally seen kind of in the springtime.
Correct. And we like to get out and talk, like you said, and unfortunately, due to current situations, we didn't get quite the opportunity we normally do.
Talk a little bit about what you want people to be aware of now, just as weather continues to change. And also, I mean, we saw it in Arkansas where a tornado came through. We're talking about social distancing, but people's inclinations immediately in something like that are to go and help their neighbors. How do you all put those two things together? And what are you telling people when they reach out?
Right. Well, it's a delicate balance that not very many people have had to deal with when it comes to making sure that we're keeping our social distancing, but at the same time, when you have something like that affect a community, you're right, everybody wants to come together and help out. We just have to consciously think of ways that we can try to limit our exposure in any way possible. Specific guidelines, I don't know that we have anything prepared for or any plans for that. It's which disaster takes precedence at that moment. And very fluid, always changing. So,
I think one of the things that people want to know is our government, is their government working together and communicating during this pandemic? Talk about where you all fall in the chain. Who's kind of leading you? How are your messages going out? And how closely do those messages mirror what they're hearing from other people?
What we are doing is we get our guidance from the Indiana Department of Health Services, Indiana State Health Department, and the health department takes the lead in this current situation, and then we try and mirror our information from those sources. That way we're all putting out a consistent message.
We have plans in place. Wayne County has had a pandemic flu plan or pandemic illness plan in place. It's one of the first things we did when we first started seeing it coming this way or affecting our areas. We broke open that plan, making sure that we as emergency management are doing everything that the plan says that we need to do. It's been written and revised multiple times through the years. A lot of it's based off the historical data obtained from the 1918 Spanish flu. And so we made sure that we went through, there's literally checklists for every entity within the county. These are the things the health department needs to be thinking about. These are the things emergency management thinks about. Law enforcement, fire, EMS, healthcare. It literally spans the whole gamut. And so that's one thing we did. We worked very closely with the health department to develop what we are referring to as our pandemic task force. We have integral individuals on that. I'll let you kind of explain who's on that maybe even.
What we have is the key players all involved. We have representatives from Reed Health, the health department, Richmond Fire, county fire departments. EMS is represented through a person as well. We have basically
The
elected officials and extended care facilities or nursing homes also have a representative on there. And we get together as often as we need to by conference call. That way we are, doing everything that we say to do. So we're not coming together and meeting, but we are communicating regularly.
Without divulging things that you can't tell ahead of time, what are those conversations like? What type of things are you all going over? Because I've been hearing about these conversations that are being held, and they're being held a couple of times a week, 3-4 times a week, every other day, something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Lasting
Yes.
About how long and covering what type of topics?
The duration depends on exactly what information we, as collectively as a group, need to share. So the time isn't really a set time, but we do get together, and it's what I would call a situational brief. That way, all the key players are up to speed and have the most current, credible, and factual information.
It may be sharing numbers from Reed Hospital. It may be sharing what the health department plans to do with some of their orders that Dr. Jetmore has put out. It may be sharing things that we have heard from the responder side. That's kind of the role of emergency management anyway. We're a liaison from our first responders in the field to our elected officials, and that's one of our roles, is making sure we have that communication channel open and flowing at all times, even during a pandemic. So if we're hearing concerns that we're getting from our first responders that need to be taken to the health department or to our elected officials, that's one of our jobs. And so those types of things are shared. Ideas for messaging. The city was gracious enough to allow their media specialist to assist those of us that don't have a media specialist. We're trying to wear all hats all at the same time. And so we're coming together to share information, share what we want to get out to the public on social media and other venues to make sure that we're all sharing the same message. And that is our ultimate goal throughout all of this, is just to decrease the amount of citizens that are affected by it.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're spending some time with Matthew Kane, John Duke from Emergency Management and Emergency Communications. Kind of split those two off for those who may not be aware, because we've had people move in, move out of this community, don't know what emergency management and emergency communications do here.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that, what you do, and what those differences are.
Sure. We've kind of talked about a little bit about what emergency management is, making sure we have all the county's plans in place, whether it be the severe weather awareness plan, or we talked about the pandemic flu plan. We have multiple continuity of operations, continuity of government, all these plans, that is our job in getting that information out to the community. On the emergency communication side, that is what is commonly referred to as the 911 dispatch center. So we're also over the 911 center, handling the calls coming in from the community for assistance and then dispatching the responders to those calls.
This time of year, as we listen to some of what we're hearing, particularly from some of the larger communities, from a 911 perspective, some of them are sounding incredibly overwhelmed. They're getting calls for a lot of different reasons, not all of them emergency. Are you seeing that same thing here?
Thankfully, we are not. We're very thankful that citizens have taken the guidance that has been pushed out, contacting, using Reed's app or other telemedicine type products, the respiratory clinic that Reed Health has put into place. We've made certain changes on our end in the questions that we're asking our callers. Every caller that is requesting some sort of in contact with our or come in contact with our responders, we're asking them the screening questions, fever, chills, any type of flu-like symptoms at all, so we can let our first responders know that they need to use appropriate PPE, maybe when approaching the situation, not just medical calls, that's law enforcement, everything. So we're screening our calls. Thankfully, we are seeing an overall decrease as I sit here right now in the number of calls. That could change literally at any hour. Some of that's due to policy changes by law enforcement officials that they've been asked not to self-initiate quite as many traffic stops and things like that you've seen in the public. But that is one thing that we are tracking on a daily basis is the number of calls for EMS and our overall calls for service. And then I'm reporting that to hospital officials so that if our piece of the pie, if we start to see an uptick or we're afraid that we're reaching that surge point that you hear talked about, that we can try to get ahead of it as much as we possibly can.
Neither of you have been through a pandemic, I assume, in these positions. Talk a little bit about what you've learned over the last few weeks as far as how prepared the county is, what you thought you knew that maybe was right or wrong. Everybody learns. There'll be assessments after this is all over, but while you're going through it, you're changing some policy, some procedure, that type thing. What are you learning? What are you changing?
On a daily basis, there's new information being published. So what we're doing is we check out and read and go through every new piece that's being put out to us, and we're constantly adapting how we operate. We're a very fluid organization depending on what the situation is and what's needed. That's one of our biggest keys is we're able to be a jack of all trades, if you will. So as these things come out and new information is published, we're constantly adapting and moving.
And I think that's been one of the frustrating things for us is trying to stay ahead of it. We've always kind of prided ourselves to be able to let people know as much advance notice as possible for a thunderstorm. And when it's changing so rapidly, it's hard for us to even stay on top of it. To reassure the public, it's interesting to read the county's pandemic plan because it's almost as if you're reading a script of what has transpired.
Really?
And that's been one thing that has been very eye-opening for me is that how well some of those plans were written. It's almost spooky in how those plans have laid out each step, each phase of a pandemic, what needs to happen next. And so that's why we have plans. They are to guide those of us that have never been through this before. And several people in positions throughout the county, we're not the only ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're relying heavily on that plan because it's already proven itself just to the point where we're at today.
We use specific plans, and one of them is our comprehensive emergency management plan. And most of our incidents fall under that plan, depending on the severity. you may only use a little part of it. This pandemic plan, like Matthew has said, is very thorough, and it's a very good document, and it is kind of eerie. I will say, just like Matthew did, that it's a little eerie just how well it was written, because it might as well be a timeline, and we're living right in the middle of it.
Okay, then I almost have to ask the follow-up. As you all have read the plan and you kind of said it's in a timeline, where does it seem like we are? And obviously things on the ground, things out of this building change. Where does it seem like we are in this timeline? Are we closer to the beginning or closer to the end of this? I think people would kind of want to get a feel for that. And again, not holding you to anything, and understanding plans change, because a part of it is, I think, how people react. And we've seen it in a couple of meetings. We talk about the numbers of some of the counties around us, and people marvel about the fact that the numbers are so low here in Wayne County. But we've heard time and time again, at this moment, generally speaking, people in Wayne County are reacting fairly well and doing what is asked of them. That hasn't necessarily been the case in other places.
Right.
If things continue the way they are and people continue to react well, where do you see it?
Well, we are closer to the beginning than we are to the end.
Okay.
That's why we are stressing, social distancing and stay the course. We will get through this, and we're all in this together, and that's the best thing that we can say about it.
Okay.
I think we all have a responsibility to take. We all have the ability to make a change. This is one time where every individual has the ability to make a change. And just by the simple, yes, we know it's an inconvenience, but it's our responsibility to help our healthcare system. I agree with John 100%. We in emergency management have to look at the total picture. So if you're looking at where we're at beginning towards the end, we're very much in the beginning. Because even when the pandemic is over, whatever that looks like, whenever that is, we still will be working with the government, both city and county, trying to recoup the cost that it has cost both entities. We work very close with FEMA. That's one thing with the President's National Emergency Declaration. It has released some FEMA money. We may or may not see that, but we're going to do everything possible, documentation, those types of things, to get as much as that FEMA money coming back to the county as we possibly can for the public entities. And it's not just, it's for each part of it. So the health department can apply, the coroner's office can apply, our office, and the city and the fire department, any expenses they might have had that is the coronavirus related. And so we're responsible for helping the others know that that's even available. So the recovery could literally be years from that standpoint, from the financial standpoint. So for us, it's very much in the beginning.
Yes.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're spending our last couple of minutes with Matthew Kane and John Duke, and we are down to our last couple of minutes, so I kind of want to give you all a chance. I know that not causing panic, but letting people know the truth is foremost in you all's mind. So I'm going to give you each a couple of minutes. What do you want people to know? I may have not asked a question, but what is most important from you and from you that you tell the community right now? What should they know? How should they be reacting? What should they be doing?
What I would like the community to know is, we talked briefly in the beginning about severe weather. We still have that element out there, and we encourage the public to take responsibility for that and be aware of the situation that is potentially going to happen, or I'm not going to say potentially, it will happen sometime this spring. We live in Indiana, and severe weather is always there. So we ask that the public be aware. When you're aware and you pay attention, you're already more prepared. So we also encourage members of the community to have multiple means of notification. And I'm going to ask the public that we use a Nixle service, which is a notification service, and it's very easy to sign up. All you have to do is text 888-777 in the to field of a text message, and then put your zip code in the body of the message and send it. And that automatically opts you in because it is an opt-in service and you have to sign up for it. Otherwise you don't get the notifications. But if you sign up, any pertinent information, whether it be weather related or should it be a pandemic information that becomes necessary that we have to put out for mass notification, that's the means or part of the way we're going to send it out. So I encourage anyone who hasn't signed up for Nixle to sign up for it when they have the chance.
One of the best quotes that I've heard recently is, for every one person that's prepared, it's one person that doesn't have to panic. There's no need to panic. There is reason to be concerned because it is our community.
Okay. Matthew Kane, John Duke, we appreciate everything that you all are doing. Greatly appreciate the time letting us come in and move some tables and do some other things. And we'll be around if you need us to help you get some information out. But thank you for what you all are doing.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with more In Focus in just a moment.
Wash your hands and wash them properly. That means a wetting of the hands, applying soap to them, washing them vigorously. You wash in between your hands and you need to get friction. Friction is actually what is breaking up all of that stuff and getting them off your hands for a good 20 seconds. And if you time 20 seconds, a lot can be said in 20 seconds. And then you rinse your hands thoroughly, dry them thoroughly, use a paper towel to open the doorknob, cover your cough.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We have a chance to hang out in the place. I've sat back here and listened to some music on multiple occasions. We're in the beer garden at Smiley's Pub. We can't be inside. That's different. To tell people that they can't be inside your business, that's got to be odd.
Yes, it is. It's very odd.
We're speaking with Kathy Hillard, who is owner, along with her husband Terry, of, you all have multiple business, some that are open, some that are not. Tell us what your businesses are.
We own Smiley's Pub, Birdie's Music Bar, Top of the Head Barber Shop, and I also have a nail salon, and the barber shop and nail salon are closed.
Okay. Birdie's, tell us a little bit about that particular business.
Birdie's, we've owned it for 11 years, and we started serving food about 5 years ago, and it has really taken off. We deliver, we have a lot of carry out, and Smiley's we've had about 2 years. So Birdie's has really taken off with the food. It took off first.
Okay. As you said, you've had to close 2 businesses. You've got 2 that are still open, but you've had to make some adjustments because of the time that we're in, as it were. Talk a little bit about some of the adjustments that you've had to make in each one of your businesses and the acceptance that you're getting in the community.
The changes definitely are the amount of food that we are selling right now. We had 4 food trucks, huge food trucks delivered last week, and we still had to go to our supplier twice to replenish because our storage and our freezers and our coolers are just packed, but we go through it so fast. It's important, I feel like we deliver to Reed Hospital, multiple locations. We deliver to a lot of people that are shut in, and can't get out or don't have transportation. We're relying on public transportation, and so they can't get out to get food, or they're of an age that they don't feel comfortable getting out with all of this going on, so they have food delivered. And for us, keeps people.
Talk a little bit about the decision that you all made, because you all are like a number of small businesses in the area, particularly in the restaurant business. You could do the carry out to the car, or you could close. Some have tried the carry out for a while, but they finally decided to close. You decided to hang on. What went into making those decisions for you?
I think the biggest factor was the people that were counting on us to stay open to bring them food. They couldn't get out from their office or their doctor's office that need food, that need to eat to keep going. And they're obviously, right now, they're exhausted. They're tired, and they need all the help they can to get the nourishment that they can to keep going. That's probably the biggest one. Birdies, we have a lot of people that live in that neighborhood that walk, that can get a hold of us and stand outside our front door to get food, that they don't have the accessibility to get out to the store either. So I think that was probably the biggest factor on staying open.
As business people, how are you all doing? Because
Exhausted.
It has to be both physically and mentally tiring.
It's very exhausting staying with every day. It seemed like the first week something was changing, and a new guideline rule was changing. Our marketing has totally changed, and just keeping the supplies in stock. That's been a huge issue for us. When, like I said, I mean, we have 100, 150 case orders every day coming in, and we still are running out. So that's probably been the most challenging part of it.
So the response to you all being able to continue to sell food has at least been positive
Yes,
from a
it
business
has been
standpoint?
very positive. All of our customers have been positive. They're very gracious that we are able to come out and bring them food.
You said your marketing has changed a little bit. Talk a little bit about what changes you've had to make. And obviously you're doing it on the fly, but what are you seeing works well? What are you seeing that didn't work well that you stopped? What kind of changes have you made?
Well, our marketing, we do a lot of factory catering, and I had to totally change that to box lunch catering. And so I've sent out emails to all of our factories that we have catered for, and put together box lunches, which is something we hadn't really done before because that's not what we were doing with them. The other issue or problem marketing wise, I had to come up with some different menu items to kind of keep, because there's not a lot of places open now, to keep some changes going on. So that's been another this week we're starting some different dinners that are not normally on our menu at both places.
How are you letting people know that you're making those changes?
Social media is what has worked best for us.
Okay. Talk a little bit about the staff that you've been able to keep on. Have you had to let people go? What that has been like for you all? That's
been really hard. We are a very, very close work community, I would say. That's been really hard to do that to your employees.
I kind of get the feeling that the restaurant business, or people in the restaurant business as a whole, kind of see themselves almost as a family. Is that a
Yes.
true statement?
Yes.
What's it been like having to watch some other people in that family make the decision to close completely and lay people off, as opposed to what you all have been able to do?
I feel for them because it's tough. It is tough. It's a tough decision to make. And I feel like it's a day-to-day, hour-to-hour sometimes, whether, or not. In the beginning especially, we were going to be able to stay open, or we were, going to have to lay everybody off, or, and how business was going to be. That was another thing, I didn't know 2 weeks ago on a Monday whether we were going to have an order or not. I didn't know. Luckily, we have. But I still feel like it's a day-to-day thing.
Okay. Talk a little bit about the kind of hours you're keeping at each one of the locations. And it's okay to give a phone number or a website or Facebook if people didn't know that you were open, if they didn't know this option was available to them for food and they need to reach out to you all. How can they find you and when can they find you?
We're on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. Our Smiley's is 962-6388 and Birdie's is 966-5252, and we offer curbside and delivery. There is a $2 delivery charge at both restaurants with a $10 minimum order. And we are open 7 days a week currently, from 11 to 9 p.m. We usually stop deliveries at 8 p.m.
Okay. Anything you need people, anything else you need people to know? A message you want to give to the community, anything of that nature?
I just want everybody to stay safe. Please social distance yourself, wash your hands. It's really important so we can get this and things back to more of a normal, where we can have people in again, because I really miss everybody's faces.
Kathy Hillard with Birdie's Music Bar and Smiley's. Looking forward to being back in this place.
I am too.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Eric.
I mean, we couldn't do what we do without First Bank and how supportive they have been throughout the years.
I've had a very good experience working with First Bank. They have been there really with all kinds of different things that I do in my life.
We consider First Bank Richmond a good friend. They're there to help us sponsor our signature events. You always are out there to help each other out.
Besides the business part of it, we just get along really well. And it's beyond a working relationship.
So, if you're home isolated, the importance is to maintain proper hygiene by washing your hands. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water is not available, which is the preference, then you can use hand sanitizer with 60 to 95% alcohol if water is not available. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth in unwashed hands. Avoid contact with people who are sick. So if you are home and sick, try to segregate yourself within your household to an area until you feel better. Stay home while you are sick, and this is called self-isolation. Cover your mouth and nose with your elbow or a tissue when coughing or sneezing, and immediately dispose of that used tissue. Wash your hands. Social distancing is really maintained by 6 feet of distance from other people when you are in public. Track your fever twice daily if you do have a fever. You can stop home isolation after being fever-free for a total of 3 days without the use of fever-reducing medicines like Tylenol, and if you have been in home isolation for 14 days. So please remember, it is fever-free and home for 14 days. Your symptoms should also be improving prior to discontinuing your home isolation. So it is not 72 hours of being fever-free. You must also have been home in isolation for 14 days, and during that time your symptoms should have improved. When to contact your physician, go on our Read Health Now app or call the hotline. If you are connected with someone for follow-up after you have been through the healthcare system, contact them. If at any time you are unstable, please call EMS and report to the emergency room.
Hi, welcome to a special In Focus conversation here on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. There was a press conference last Friday night on the 20th updating some information on COVID-19 and what was happening in both the city and the county. One of the Facebook questions that we got asked about property taxes and an extension of that. We have come to the source. The Wayne County Treasurer, Kathy Williams, is here with us, and she's going to update us on what the government, what the state government has put into place and how locally they're going to handle that. So Kathy, thanks for spending a little time with us.
Thank you, Eric, for asking, because this will be great to get it out to the public. We've tried to release some things to the media sources, but if you don't mind, I have prepared some things just so I don't miss anything. So I'm going to go through, kind of read my information, and then if you got questions for me, that'd be great.
Okay.
So I'll just start right in. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the terrible sacrifices that all Hoosiers are making, Governor Holcomb has announced that the spring property taxes will still be mailed as usual, but the penalties will not be assessed for 60 days. So what that means is this: the Wayne County residents should be getting their 2019 paid 2020 property tax bills in the mail approximately the second week of April, and the spring installment due date is still May the 11th this year, but the late penalties will not be assessed until 60 days after the deadline due date. So the last day to make your on-time payments is July the 10th, which seems really, really strange, but that's what it is. However, that waiver of penalties does not apply to tax payments which have been escrowed by financial institutions on behalf of property taxpayers. So if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company, your escrow, has to be paid by that May 11th due date. The waiver does not apply to those folks. So with all the changes going on in our lives, and at this time in the Treasurer's Office, we have some new changes as well. We are installing a drive-up Treasurer's property drop box in the Annex Building parking lot. It is similar in size and shape to the U.S. Postal Service Department drop boxes. And please do not put cash in the drop box. If you don't have a checking account, you may get a money order at your local bank, the gas stations, I believe Walmart, the post office. You can get money orders or cashier's checks at any of those locations. So please don't put cash in the box. Your canceled check this year will serve as your receipt, because we're not having the public into the office. We'll be here for any questions you may have, so give us a call. We'll be here, and we just want to make sure that if you drop that check into the drop box, we will get it, and your canceled check serves as your receipt, so we will not be mailing receipts back. We haven't done that in several years, which is why a lot of times a lot of older folks tend to come into the office. They want that receipt, but you really don't need it. You have a canceled check. It's no different than the utility companies. When you pay the light bill, the gas bill, you don't get a receipt back. So we're just following suit because we don't have the money in the budget to mail back receipts and envelopes and the time and manpower to do that. And we are asking taxpayers to please utilize the drop box or the U.S. mail or one of our local banks' drive-up windows. This year, we will only be using the services of First Bank Richmond and Wayne Bank, any of their locations. We will not be using West End Bank, as they are switching to Three Rivers. So you can't pay your bill at West End this year. You may also pay online through the Treasurer's website, and there's an additional fee for that, so beware. If you go on there, the credit card company does charge an additional fee for those services. The Wayne County Annex building is closed to the public unless you call ahead and make an appointment with the department that you need. You may contact the Treasurer's Office with any questions you may have. However, things are very fluid at this time and may change by tomorrow. We're not sure. One thing I do want to say is please stay safe, take care, and remember that we live in one of the greatest countries on earth, and we all count on one another. We're all one big family. We're all connected. So please, please stay home, stay safe, and God bless.
Okay.
And I'm sure you have some questions for me.
Not questions. I just want to make sure to go over so that people really have a chance to really hear the highlights, because folks are used to, same as I have, you know, we're in and out of this county building a great deal. We know that you all normally set aside parking spaces.
Yes,
for, if
we
you're
do.
coming to pay your property taxes, park here.
True.
And a lot of people move, so they're used to doing that. Cash. you still have a lot of people who pay with cash?
Yes, we have lots of people that pay with cash. I'm not sure why that is, especially in the electronic age, but we do. So we do not want cash, you know, this time especially, because you can't come into the building and do it. We're really doing essential business only. As I said before, that could change at any time. So please just mail us a check, cashier's check, money order. We still have the drop box out on that would be the west side of the building. If you want to walk up and put it in that drop box tomorrow, the big postal service box or drop box for us will be out in the parking lot, or it's to be delivered here. We're going to get it installed right away. So that will be in the annex parking lot. And please utilize those services or drive through one of the local banks, First Bank, Wayne Bank. You know, they have several locations, so that would be great. It would be very helpful to all of us.
Has it been decided exactly where that box will be so we can kind of give people an idea of what they're going to see and where?
It will be when you come in the west entrance to the annex parking lot. As soon as you pull into that entrance to the lot, you're going to make like a right-hand turn and go between the two rows of cars that are on the south side of the building. And that drop box will be on the left side. We have a tree and a brick area. They're going to install it on the bricks. So you just pull over, drop your payment, and go right on out the other end of the parking lot. So that should be helpful.
The deadline really hasn't moved. It's just the date for which a penalty will be assessed. Is that correct?
Correct. So the governor, because of the economic strain on everyone, the governor has moved those penalties out for 60 days, so that people that aren't working, we don't want them to go, oh my gosh, now I've got a tax bill, what on earth, on top of everything else when people are so stressed. So he moved that out 60 days, so you have until July the 10th is the last date to get that in on time. So basically, we're going to be collecting bills from probably April the 13th is when I think they'll probably hit the mail locally.
Okay.
Through July the 10th. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that doing that means the settlement money and the money that goes to the schools and the libraries and the cities and the towns and county government, we will still get that money out at settlement time the same as always. However, there probably won't be nearly as much in that shortened window as what we normally have. So that is going to be a big strain for all of those units of government that need the money. So if you can pay it on time, that would be so greatly appreciated by everyone. I mean, we're all in a strain, and we're all in this together, as everyone has said. So just, you know, whatever you can do, and even if you can't pay the whole thing, if you can pay any part of it beforehand, please do. It would just really help a lot.
You're watching an In Focus special conversation. We're talking with Kathy Williams, Wayne County Treasurer. Just a couple of quick things before we let you go. For those people that are used to getting a receipt when they come in and pay, they're not going to see that this year. So you're really suggesting people try to use checks or something where they get a receipt on the front side, or their canceled check is a receipt.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly, because we're going to be cutting back on manpower as well. And it normally takes my whole staff plus a part-time lady. We're not going to have all of that because we're cutting back the same as everyone else. So we're at this moment in time, 30% of our workforce is going to be gone. So it's going to be tough. But still, if you know they could do that, that would be great.
A couple of things we want to reintroduce to people again. First Bank Richmond, Wayne Bank, the only local locations where they can do this as far as banks. West End, making a name switch to another company. So people are used to going there. That's not a location for paying your property taxes. West End.
You can still go to Wayne Bank. You can still go to First Bank Richmond. West End is switching over. They're going to be Three Rivers Credit Union. I believe now they have postponed that date, but we're already in the works, so we can't use them. Unfortunately, we can't, in my office, use credit unions for the government, the county business. So they're out of the mix this year, so that kind of limits us a bit. But you still can go online, pay with a debit card. There's a smaller fee. If you use a credit card, I think it's 2.5% of what you're charging. There's lots of other options. So we're just to try to make it easier for the people. And two, we still want you to stay home and do this. So the mail is still running. Just write a check and put it in the mail. But please, if you don't have your coupon, put a little note on the memo line that tells us what property address you are paying for, because it's really tough sometimes. Somebody mails a check with no paperwork and they're paying for their mom's property tax, but they didn't bother to tell us that. So sometimes it gets really tough.
Include all
figure
that
out.
information. If they have missed any part of this, if I have misspoke, there's a phone number that they can call to try to get some information to your office. What would that be? 765-973-9386. That is my direct line. I will be here. And if I'm not here, I can access that from home should the building close or whatever. So you can always get a hold of me at that number. All right. Anything else we need to make sure people know?
I think we're good, other than please stay home, stay safe, and thank you all.
Kathy Williams, Wayne County Treasurer, thanks for taking some time.
Thank you, Eric.
This has been an In Focus special conversation. Stay tuned.
Scheduling for Whitewater Community Television happens 1 week in advance, particularly now because of unexpected changes, special government meetings, press conferences, and health updates. What you see on your digital guide may not be as accurate as we would like. The program guide that appears after each episode is the best way to keep up to date with our programming.
Hi, how can I help you?
My daughter has a fever and she isn't feeling well.
Okay, let's get her feeling better.
Receive quality care within the comfort of your own home. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Welcome back to In Focus on WGTV Channel 11. We are outside the YMCA speaking with Misty Hollis, Executive Director of the Y. Thanks for giving us some time.
I'm happy to. I'm sorry you're having to be outside, but it's probably best right now.
I'm sure that it is, and probably the tape measurer will tell us that we didn't step it off, but hopefully we're close enough.
Oh my gosh, I miss hugging people. Just saying. Just saying.
I know. Disclaimer that I always have to do. Misty Hollis is a member of the Whitewater Community Television Board of Directors, has been for a long period of time. I always kind of throw that one out there when I'm speaking to a board member so that people know. Okay. Listen, normally this is a place that is kicking. There is a lot going on. The kids are having a good time, lots of programs, people in and out. Yeah. I look around the parking lot right now and I go, wow, how's it going?
Well, I mean, our board made a decision before the governor did to go ahead and to close for 2 weeks. Now, it kind of fell within that window of the governor making a decision, so we'll see where everything lands in a week. But we felt it was the right thing to do for safety, and I'm glad we did it. In the meantime, we received calls from the state of Indiana and from the Child Care Division, and they really asked us to look at how could we offer child care services for essential employees, the employees that are still working. Right. So we put a plan together, and we kicked that off today. So our numbers aren't where we want them to be. Right now we're around 10 that are registered kids, but we've already got numbers growing for next week, and I'm sure the week after that it'll continue to grow.
Talk a little bit about who they described as essential, and I know there's a long list, but are you covering all of those areas? And when you think about, you say you have 10. I think that's like the maximum of people that are supposed to be in a room. Does that work in the same area as for childcare?
So it has really been fascinating to be a part of childcare before all of this and where we are today, because the restrictions and the guidelines being set for us is pretty strict. So we need to keep kids to what we call 10 to a pod, into a group. The staff person we can't, what we call intermingle the staff that is assigned to those kids stay with those kids.
Okay.
We are we're taking the temperature when the kid arrives, and then the parents do not bring the kids into the facility. We meet them at the car and we bring the kids into the facility, and then we'll take them to the vehicle as well. We're meeting the state standards of our 1-to-10 ratio for our kids. And if we can go lower, we will. I mean, if we can do 1-to-6, that's even better, depending on the ages that we have. State standards really kind of vary with age groups too.
What are the age groups that you're dealing with here?
We have primarily always been school age, so 5th, kindergarten to age 12. We are extending that a little bit and have permission to do age 3 as long as they're potty trained. So we can take age 3 to age 12. So it's a pretty broad age group for us.
Okay.
But again, we'll follow the state standards and guidelines on the ages that need to be together, the activities that they need to be together. And then our cleaning is pretty strict on the type of chemicals we need to use, how we clean, when we clean. So all that is being taken into account as well for our kids.
If there's somebody watching this who is an essential worker that is still out there, didn't know you all had this, how do they reach out to you? What's a phone number or website, wherever they can get information?
Right, so they can go to our Richmond Family YMCA.org website. There's information there. And then, or you can call here, 962-7504. We have somebody here from 7:30 to 6 o'clock right now during the day that will be able to answer any questions that they have. In the meantime, what we call essential employees are really primarily those employees that their employer is saying, hey, you have to be in here. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing companies that are having to still have their people in. We have food production companies here in Richmond, big company like Sugar Creek, that we're wanting to ensure that we can still offer some assistance to the families as long as they need it.
Okay. Child care for people beyond this is something that you all were beginning to get into, and it's the Richmond Family YMCA, but you all are working with Sugar Creek over in Cambridge City trying to set up some child care over there. Is that still continuing, and can you tell us where those conversations are and where you are in that progress?
Yeah, we were approached by Sugar Creek about a year ago about a partnership that they would buy a building and we would operate the child care center. It would be first shift and second shift for their employees. Then if there's space and availability, then we will open up to the community of Western Wayne to provide child care for the area. I do suspect there will be. Sugar Creek moved quickly. They bought the old Central School in Cambridge City, which is right on US 40. Yeah. And we are moving forward. We are still having conference calls every Tuesday on the architect plans and how to move us forward with that. This hasn't slowed us down yet in that aspect and in the planning. So we're still moving forward and hope late fall to have a place open for Sugar Creek's employees and also the community.
I know the why is not having classes, but I think maybe some of your instructors are doing some things on the side. Have you been in contact with any of them?
Yeah.
And what can you share about what some of them are doing?
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So what happens is everybody now is sedentary. They're home. We're in this window of the weather. Are you outside or you're not outside? It's too cold.
It's a little breezy today.
It is. The sun's shining.
But sun is shining. That's good.
So what we're trying to do, and I know some other fitness facilities are doing it too, is keeping our instructors engaged on our Facebook page. So there have been some classes that have been done on Facebook within our legal limits of what we can do, or sharing other YouTube videos, or just trying to keep them active as much as they can at home. It's tough. It's really tough, and I'm hoping that people just pay attention to how they eat, what they eat, and still keep moving as much as they can, and then hopefully sooner rather than later they're back in here and getting physically fit again. It's tough.
Tell me what it is that you all say to the kids. Have you all had questions from the kids as to what's going on, how long this will last? Are you all dealing with some of the anxiety of our kids during the day with this? And what do you tell them?
So we try to encourage our parents just to have conversations with the kids. I mean, the anxiety, they feel it. Kids feel it anyway. They know life is different. They're not going to school. Some are learning online, some are not, depending on which school district you're in. And so they know their life is different, so there's no need to lie to them about it. But you want to still be encouraging and positive. And that's probably one of the things we want the parents to do the most is have a schedule at home, have activities. So, we're still getting up. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to do some physical activity now. We're going to do some learning if you're at home. And I know it's hard on parents because they're just not used to it. I mean, they're used to getting up and going to work and school. Their kids are at school. So this is a totally different environment for them, but we want to keep them active. You want kids to be busy, less video games the better, and just stay positive with them. They've got questions, we try to answer it the best way we can. But again, it's about being positive, knowing we're going to get back to normal as soon as we can.
You've been involved in the political scene for a long time. Obviously, you're not on Common Council now, but you spent 8 years there. Talk to me a little bit about, without throwing stones, talk to me about the political leaders as you see them, locally, on a state level, on a federal level, how they're kind of handling this as you do it. I know you still have that political hat on. You're seeing some things. Talk about the decisions that they're making and how you kind of see those, even just as an individual.
Yeah, I think, so this obviously has been in my mind to know that I was off council December and here we are March, that this happened all so quick. And I have talked to council members, city council members, not all of them, but a few of them. The mayor was gracious to take my call a couple of weeks ago, just because I had questions about childcare and what we wanted to do, and I wanted to make sure that was going to meet some standards with the health department. So there's been some open dialogue. I think I can say this on their behalf. This weighs on them. They're losing sleep at night. They're worried. They want a community that thrives, and they want a county that's back to work. So it's that real balance, and it'll be interesting after all this is done to have some open dialogue of what is this balance between the health and the wellness of a community financially too, and how do we move forward with it. I think they're struggling with those questions too. Sure. But I would just say at this point, people pray for your leaders, pray for people making decisions. It's hard. This isn't easy. And
there's no playbook out there.
No, there isn't.
This.
There isn't. And I appreciate and value those people that are having to make these decisions every day. I think about it from the governor's perspective and even president and vice president's perspective of, I don't know if anybody's sleeping at that level. I just don't know. I mean, I know where my heart is at the local level, and I know what I see is happening here. So continue to pray for our leaders. That's what we need to do.
All right. I appreciate the time. I know
Thank
you've got
you.
stuff to do. Appreciate you taking some time and talking with us on In Focus today.
Thank you.
This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.